Hello, my name's Kevin Maddocks, and in this programme my fishing companion Alan Taylor will give you all the information needed for your first ever carp trip to France. Alan's very qualified to do this because he's been more than 30 times. So perhaps first of all we can ask Alan a little bit about preparation for a trip to France. Tackle-wise, what specifically would you take?
Yeah, you've got to be very well prepared for a trip away, because once you're here, what you haven't got with you is almost impossible to obtain. So personally, if I come for about a week, I bring plenty of leads, at least 100 leads for a week's fishing. You may be fishing like one of these old flooded lakes where they've just sawn off the tree stumps, and you could be using up to 10 leads a day depending how often you're casting. So you must have a lot of leads. And obviously the same thing that goes with your leads, you need hooks and hook link material. So once again, at least 100 hooks and enough hook link material to tie up 100 rigs. Like, if you look on that side, I mean, if you can bring more, all well and good. Bring it, put it in the car. If you don't use it, you don't use it. But it's always best to be prepared, because when you get out here, there's just nowhere you can go to purchase that sort of equipment. You know what they use there, it's mostly sort of pike fishing and that sort of thing out here. So if you was lucky enough to find a tackle shop, you wouldn't be able to buy a 3 or 4 ounce lead or some Christ and hook link material or your favourite pattern of hooks. It'd be nothing like that. Right,
and what about line? 2 or 3 bulk spools of 1,000 metres or something?
15-pound main line, that's what I'd recommend. You need a good strong line, and 4 bulk spools is plenty. If you don't use it over here, you've always got it for home, haven't you?
So that'd be 4 bulk spools, what, 1,000 metres a spool,
yep,
of 15 pound, which is about 7 kilos, 100 bombs, a couple of 100 hooks, yep, of your favourite pattern, and they've got to be strong,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
What about tubing?
Yeah, I mean, if you use tubing, that's something else. There's just no specialist shops out here, so anything that you, little things like that, boilie stops and things like that, that's what you need them, you know, and plenty of them.
So 20 metres of tubing, perhaps? Because if you're going to lose 50 rigs, you're going to need that amount, aren't you? Yeah. What about rods and reels, then?
Yeah, just stepped up carp gear I do. Usually I bring my big Shimano reels, which are useful for holding a lot of line if you're taking out long lines. And just a normal carbon carp rod, what majority of people use.
Right.
Kettle's boiling.
Good. Thanks very much, lovely. Let's talk about bait now. Can you tell us exactly what you need in way of boilies and particles?
Yeah, once gone, again, you've got to be really well prepared. There's just nowhere out here you can buy boilies. You might be able to buy the odd sack of maize somewhere, but again, once you get to the lake, you want to be fishing and make the most of your fishing time. So if you've got the room and the space, bring as much as you can bring again. On the big waters that I fish, you can't have enough bait. I bring 60 kilo of boilies and 100 kilo of maize, and that do me up to about 5 days.
What's that, for one person?
Yeah,
or?
just one person really.
Right.
I mean, on the big lakes you can't have enough bait. If you're fishing smaller waters, obviously you don't need so much bait, you know, you can scale it down onto what you'd normally use, you know.
Yeah, so apart from maize, which you can get fairly easily anywhere in France, for how much? About 100 francs, 50 kilos?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Apart from that, you need to bring everything with you for the whole session.
Yeah, even if it's their first trip, I mean, obviously you've got the language barrier and everything like that. It is best to bring everything, to be prepared, have every single thing that you need for your trip with you. And then you cut down. You ain't got to spend a day looking for somewhere to sell you some maize, only to find out that they're shut for the day or something like that, you know. So, again, you know, have it all with you if you can.
Right, yeah. We've covered bait and tackle. What other things are very important?
Choosing your company, who you come away with, is very important, I think. I mean, you hear of all sorts of disasters where blokes have turned up with people they don't know, big arguments, been stranded out here, left without a car and all like that. So really just come with your mates, people you know and you can trust, you know, that you could be able to get on for the length of your trip without falling out, really.
Because things can go wrong, can't they?
Yeah, certainly can.
Yeah. And what about the amount of people on a trip? What's ideal?
Yeah, well, again, if you bring 4 people, you know, it keeps your costs down on the ferries. And again, on the ferries, have a shop round. Sometimes it's cheaper to travel at night, off-peak, in the week and not at the weekends. If you're worried about the costs, get as many, you know, 4 people in a car and come off-peak, really.
Yeah, so if you're travelling from England and you're worried about the costs, then it's better if there's 3 or 4. Once you're in France, what can you expect?
Well, the first thing you've got to get used to, obviously, is coming from England, is that you're driving on the opposite side of the road. What we did the first time we come, we actually put a bit of, it might sound daft, but I'm sure it saved us a few times. We actually wrote a big sticker that said curb and an arrow and stuck it in the windscreen.
Yeah.
So I heard me mate, the first time they went to Cassien, stopped for a cup of tea, drove out straight down the road, head-on collision. You just don't, you know, your mind goes blank for a few minutes, and the next thing you know, you've got a lorry coming straight towards you.
So for the British, they've got to be thinking about it all the time.
Yeah.
What other things can you expect to come across?
Obviously, there's the French regulations you should have with your, I think it's a red triangle, a spare light bulbs.
Headlamp, diffuser, whatever it is,
Diffuser, and your GB sticker that should be displayed. I mean, that is by law.
So check the regulations.
Yeah, that's it,
Because every law, every country's different, isn't it?
Yeah.
What other expenses can you expect to come across?
Well, obviously, something you've got over here that you haven't got in England is the tolls, the toll roads. I mean, to go down Cassien is approximately 500 francs, which is a lot of money there, and then obviously you've got to pay it back as well.
Yeah.
The other thing, the petrol's a little bit dearer as well. And of course, it ain't called petrol out here. It's sans plomb for unleaded, and super for the normal 4-star or
High octane, ordinary petrol, yeah. Anything else that you're likely to come across? What about, I've heard speed restrictions, they can check the time if you go through the tolls.
Yeah.
Is that a possibility?
That's it. Well, as you go through each toll, you take a ticket one end. When you get to the other end, they look at your ticket and you pay your money for how many miles you've done on that toll road.
So they could check your average speed?
It's all timed, I think, and then they actually, I mean, a lot of the toll bridges and toll stations, you'll see the gendarmes are actually there, so I think that's what they're there for, the speeding. You know.
Right. And as soon as you turn off the main auto routes, there's no more tolls?
No, you're just back on normal roads again then.
But it's best to use the auto routes for travelling because the ordinary roads are so slow, are they?
Yeah, well, some of them are not too bad, but again, it's a lot harder. You've got map reading to do and all like that. If you're on the auto route, you know, you get on it and you go to your destination and more or less you get off the other end.
Yeah.
And they're a lot quicker, obviously.
And there's lots of auto routes in France, isn't there? They're everywhere, so there's no problem doing most of your journey on the auto route.
And they're not like ours, our sort of M-ways and all like that. There's all of them have got really nice service stations where you can stop and have a break and get something to eat. They've got lots, you see a lot of these, what they call areas, or, well, that's the English pronunciation, just like a little area, lay by you and pull off. They've got toilets and...
A rest area sort of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and there's loads of them, you know, it's always worth sort of pulling.
So if someone's going from, if you're coming from England, say you're going from Calais to Lake Cassien, down south, you could stop halfway along the motorway and have a sleep.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Whereas in England that would be a problem, wouldn't
that's it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's all down to where you're going and what you can afford, etc.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, when planning your journey, always try and avoid Paris if you can. If you get caught up on the periphery, it can add 2 or 3 hours to your journey. So, if possible, avoid it. I take off this, just nylon. Yeah, yeah, take off.
Part 2, where to fish in France. Come on in, Alan, tell us where.
Yeah, I've been to quite a few places. A good place to start is a lot at Cabanac, I expect. It's one of the first places I actually fished in France. No particular problems there. The language barriers, no trouble. They've seen plenty of English anglers before. There's some really nice fish in there. Commons to over 40 pounds, fully scaled mirrors to 37, and quite easy fishing. You can get plenty of action. You know, it's not for somebody who'd want to go just particularly to catch one big fish. It's somewhere where you could go for a week and expect to catch a lot of fish. It's quite a journey. It's down south, but
yeah.
Once you're there, it's a nice place to be. It's a slow-moving river. They've got barrages, which are basically just big dams that divide up the sections. Cabanac, that'd be the place to start, I would have thought. There's a lot more fish in there, a bit smaller than perhaps the other sections, but a good place to go.
Right, and if I remember rightly, that place is featured on Mickey Hall's video, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
So if anyone wants to go there, it'd be best if they watch that first.
Something like that, yeah.
Right. Somewhere else?
A river again, perhaps?
Yeah.
Somewhere where we've been, the Seine.
River Seine, yeah. That's between, what, Fontainebleau and Montereau?
That's it, anywhere along, yeah. Once again, it's all divided up between barrages. I mean, we fished a couple of sections, but any of them have got to be worth a try on the Seine, haven't they? Big fish all throughout.
Yeah, yeah. And that's where we made the film French Carping 1, wasn't it?
That's it.
Near Milan, was it?
That's it.
So anyone thinking of going there could watch that film for some information.
I'll give them a lot of information, that.
And the French record, that came from the Yonne, didn't it? River Yonne?
Yeah, that actually joins the Seine at Montereau. They join in together. I've fished the Yonne as well, and that's very similar to the Seine. But again, the barrages split it up. It's like an English canal with the locks. It's in between the different locks, and what you do find is between the different barrages, you find very different stockings of fish. You know, for one barrage, it might be only a few fish, but big fish. And you move on to another barrage, and there's lots of little fish.
But there's a good chance of catching if someone's going for the first time.
And when you get there, if you see any Frenchmen, it's always worth, you know, even if your language ain't too good, try and have a word with them, and they generally tell you can get a good idea of what's going on anyhow.
Yeah.
And what can be caught.
And there's always a chance of a massive fish from the Seine or the Yonne, isn't there?
Definitely. I think, you know...
50, 60 pounders.
Always. Even bigger, perhaps, you know.
Yeah.
You often hear of, when you're out there, you know, they're fished by quite a few Dutch and Belgian anglers fish the Seine a lot, and often hear of tales of big fish that they've caught.
Yeah, yeah. Moving over to the northwest, there's Fisherville in Brittany. I don't think you've been there, have you?
No, I haven't, no.
I went there last year, and it's a very good water for beginners. It would be difficult to blank there. You could expect to catch 20 or 30 fish in a week at least. Average size, probably about 18 pounds, perhaps 20 pounds. But it's a nice sort of sheltered lake, about 80 acres, down one end. And it's run on a professional basis as a carp water, and you can legally night fish that, because a lot of places in France you cannot night fish, can you?
Yeah.
So Fisherville, that's been the subject of a video and many articles. Again, very good place for somewhere to go.
Yeah. And is that somewhere where you can actually book from England? You can actually book up
You can book from England or from any other country.
Yeah.
Or you can actually turn up at the water.
Oh.
If you want accommodation there, you have to book in advance.
Right.
But if you want to fish, you just turn up. And there are carp in there up to at least £50.
And a few catfish as well?
Yeah, there's a few catfish as well. Right, where else can we come up with? Metz in the northeast. You've been there, I think, haven't you?
Yeah, been there once. That's run by Carp Fishers Abroad, the Cat and Shally Lake, 2 lakes. The big lake is basically for big cats, I think. Although he does change the stocking around, the actual man who owns it is a fish farmer, and a lot of the big fish in there are his brood fish for breeding. Certainly big catfish, big carp, big grass carp. He's got some of them, they silver carp in there as well in there,
yeah,
which a lot of waters don't actually hold. But it's certainly a nice place, and another one where there's no problems. You book up before you go and everything's arranged for you when you get there. It's legal to night fish. no problem buying permits or anything like that.
And it's a fairly easy water, ideal for beginners, is
yeah, yeah, plenty of fish again. When we were there, we was catching koi up to sort of 15, 16 pounds.
Yeah.
It's a nice place, and it's a bit different. You've got species of fish there that you wouldn't catch everywhere in France.
La Puisée, also known as Etang de Rouge, I don't think you fished that one, have you?
No.
It's near Chartres. That's another ideal water for beginners. I fished it one night and had a couple of nice grass carp out of there. There's carp to over 40 pounds, and that's a relatively easy water. And that's one that you can legally night fish again, so well worth going for the beginner.
Yeah, there's also Le Lac Le Rouge in the Loire Valley. It's advertised in a lot of the carp magazines, run by an old friend of mine, John Burrows. That's got some nice catfish to over 30 pounds and some nice carp over 30s now. He's got it sorted out. Had a bit of a bad reputation when it first got going, but I think he's got it all sorted out now. There's accommodation there as well, so that's another small lake with not a lot of problems.
And that's ideal for first carp trip as well, is it?
Yeah, that's right.
What size does the carp go up to? About 40, is it?
Yeah, I think there's got...
40 pounds, 20 kilos?
Yeah, certainly 30 pounders in there anyhow. I'm not sure quite what the biggest is.
Right. Chalon-sur-Saône?
Yeah, that's one you've been to, isn't it?
Yes, there's 2 or 3 lakes there near the River Seine. Quite easy carp waters. One's about 30 acres, 15 hectares. 2 or 3 smaller ones. Some friends of mine have fished that, and they've had quite a few 30-pounders. 15-kilo fish are fairly common there, so that's another ideal place to go. Where else?
But you start getting onto the big waters now, don't you, really?
Yeah.
Certainly there's Cassienne. I mean,
Lake
probably
Cassienne.
the most famous carp lake in France, I should imagine.
Not far from Cannes.
That's it. Yeah.
Perhaps you can tell us a bit about that, as you've been there.
Yeah. Probably everybody's heard a bit about it, but it's a big water, split into 3 arms, the north, south and the west. Huge carp. I mean, possibly if the record's going to get broken, it's going to come from now. I know you were saying, you told me a bit about Paul Regent. He actually hooked one that he thought might even be 3 figures, yeah?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. My friend Paul and Ken, they played the fish for a long time and lost it at the net, and they thought it might be a 3-figure fish, but there's certainly carp to 80, 90 pounds in the lake, isn't there?
Definitely, yeah.
40 kilos, certainly.
There must be a lot of fish in there as well, because a lot of them, you see photos of them, and they got photos in Pierre's restaurant and all of that, and you never see them again, do you? Everybody goes there and they catch 40-pounders, and
that's right.
The fish are so just not double up anymore, do they?
That's right. Initially, when it was discovered by carp anglers about 10 years ago, it was quite easy, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people went there and caught huge fish. And more recently, it's got difficult, so it's not an ideal water for a beginner, really, is it?
No, I wouldn't have said so.
No.
And of course, on these big waters, you can get all sorts of problems. You've got, like, the Mistral winds you get down there, which is a really strong wind, and if you're not prepared for them, it can be very difficult fishing, you know. Because a lot of your fishing on there, you're moving about in a boat. There's no access by cars, is there really?
No.
Get in a boat with your tackle and away you go for the duration.
And like with most lakes in France, there's no night fishing.
No.
And it is patrolled regularly at night, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you get in as much trouble down there. I mean, night fishing is strictly out. It's also, because of the temperatures and the dry banks down there, if they find you with a gas stove, I think they lock you up and throw the key away, more or less, don't they? They just won't have it down there. Because, I mean, you get terrible forest fires. I've been down there when the water planes have been landing on the lake, you know, taking water out to put on the fires for people starting.
And even then they can't put them out, can they?
No.
Yeah, whole villages have been burnt out in that area,
right.
Everybody's homes and everything.
Yeah.
Well, can we move on to another water now?
Yeah.
What about at Montpellier? Lake Salagas?
Yep, no very big water. Some terrific fish in there. Certainly young fish and growing very fast. When it was first fished for, they were sort of average weight was 20 pounds, but now it's way over 30. Little more difficult now, like a lot of the waters get when they've been fished for.
And that's a large lake with clear water, sort of rocky
Very
banks.
clear water, lots of snags, which are, I think there's like old grapevines with mussels on them. I think that's what they are. Something like that. Terrible, really, isn't it?
And there's a couple of campsites on the lake, isn't there?
Yeah, you can camp there easily, yeah.
So would you recommend that for beginners or not?
Yeah, no, a long journey, but, well, perhaps not for the beginner. Someone who's been abroad a few times and won't be intimidated by a big water, because when you first see these big waters, it can scare people. I know people who say them and they just don't know where to start when they see them, when they're that big.
Yeah, and there's no night fishing allowed there, but it's the sort of place you can catch in the daytime anyway, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what about this water we're on now?
Yeah, a bit special, isn't it? Lac de Chantecaille. Just finished filming the old, is it number 2?
French Carping 2, yeah. And we've had a few fish, haven't we?
Oh.
Over 1.5 tons of carp, including many 30s and some 40s.
Yeah.
One hell of a session.
Amazing fishing here at the minute, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just, at the moment, this time of year, it's the conditions that are against you.
Yeah. Perhaps you can tell us a bit about when it was first discovered, because it's quite a recent water for carp anglers, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I believe the history of it used to be 3 villages, and they were flooded to make a biggest man-made reservoir in Europe, I believe it is.
Yeah.
It's used for water that goes out through the rivers for drinking water, I believe, all around Paris and that.
Yeah. So that's why you see sometimes roads going into the lake and you see remains of houses and cottages, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 3 villages, I believe it's 70 kilometres round it. You actually drive round,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's thousands of acres. It changes a lot from high water level to low, doesn't it? How many metres a year?
Because of the water that they drain off, I believe that they shut all the gates and they begin filling it up around January, February time, and then by May it's actually full. And this time of year, like we're here now,
in the autumn, yeah.
Yeah, it's down 8 metres, 24 foot, but saying it's down that much, it's not sort of like a swimming pool. The water's actually gone down, what, from the trees to the water must be 300 yards, would it be down?
Yeah.
So, and obviously you've got all the problems of you're fishing on the lake bed this time of year, you know. In the spring it's very difficult to fish because the water's high, there's no bank space. Yeah. This time of year there's plenty of bank space, but you're actually sat in the old riverbed, you know, up to your knees in mud like we have been this week.
Yeah, rather a lot of mud.
Yeah.
But it's worth it, isn't it?
Yep, certainly is.
So tell me a bit about the tactics you use here, because you last year you were part of a massive haul of carp, weren't you?
Yeah.
We've watched you in this film fish close and fish long. We've watched you fish at 200 metres, which you can't normally cast through. So tell us how you fish at that long range, because that's interesting.
Yeah, it's all trying to add to your location, really. It's such a big water, I mean, you just can't cover bits of it at a time, really. You look out and there's 5 miles of water, you know. I don't really think that you can sort of fish, say, long range, 170 yards. What's 170 yards into 5 miles? All you've got to do is find an area where they'll take the bait, really. They're in here, and it's just a matter of getting them on the bait and finding where they'll take it confidently. Some swims you'll find, particularly where it's snaggy, just by casting 40 or 50 yards, you'll be able to get takes, but then you've got the problems with the snags. So what I try and do is to row baits out 150, 200 yards sometimes. And if you can get bites by doing that in clear water or bites in the daytime, more bites than you can fishing in the snags, then that's the time and the place to be doing it, you know. Yeah, obviously for that sort of thing you need a boat, so you must have one with you. And these little rubber dinghies are no good. You can have 3, 4 foot waves on here, you know. It's worse than the sea on here some days when the wind picks up.
And with all the snags, of course, you could be out there in a blow-up dinghy and you could get a puncture and
no starter,
you've got clothes on and you've had it, haven't
Very
you?
dangerous, yeah.
So small rubber dinghy's not advised, just a proper hard boat.
That's right.
And sort of how do you take the baits out? Someone holds the rod on the bank?
That's it, yeah. I mean, we did go all through it in the video, but yeah, basically it's a 2-man job is the best way to do it. 1 man on the bank, 1 in the boat with the baits. Put baits, row them out, work out a little bit of a signalling thing between you, tighten up, drop your baits and put them in. I mean, it can be a very tiring method of fishing if you are actually catching fish, but a well worthwhile one if it means that you'll get fish that you won't be able to catch from the bank.
Oh yes.
And one advantage is, of course, where you drop the terminal tackle bait, you can put loads of free off in the right spot, can't you? Right. And that certainly seems to pay.
Yeah, I mean, we have had to play fish from the boats because of the snags, so once again,
boat
comes in handy. If you can bring one with you, all well and good.
Yeah. And what about, I know we've mentioned tackle and things like that earlier in the programme, but what about baits or tackle, anything special? Obviously you need lots of gear at this sort of place because of the torn off trees. Tell us a bit about baits for here.
Yeah, I mean, at this actual place, you've got a problem with the crayfish if your baits are not hard enough or big enough. You know, we've seen people on here where they packed up before, where they've been using the baits have been too soft. So you must have a big hard bait. I mean, we've been using the old ready-mades, and they've been great, haven't they?
Yeah, they're nice trays.
We've had no problem.
They've got to be hard all the way through, haven't they? That's what's
right.
important.
Yeah.
And regular checking the baits, because sometimes even the hard bait can only be out there 4, 6, 8 hours and it can be gone, can't it?
Yeah, you need to regularly recast. That's again where it comes in with its long rods.
Okay.
It's all very well doing it, but you've got to work at it, you know, it can be hard work.
Yeah. And another thing to consider, of course, is if the crayfish are eating the baits in, say, 6 hours, you might have just put 5,000 boilers
Yeah.
up. 6 hours later, there's none there.
That's it, gone. Yeah.
So you've got to start again.
That's right, yeah.
Hence the need for lots of bait. And finally, what about the pioneering type angler? What can he do?
Well, rewards can be very good if you're brave enough to do it. Big map of France, look for a bit of blue and away you go. A lot of these lakes are just unfished. There's just not that many carp anglers in France. You'll meet quite a few Dutch anglers, Belgium anglers, anglers from Germany and anglers from England, but the country and the water is unbelievable. I mean, if you're prepared to put yourself out, find a big water, go and visit the local tackle shops. They may only be a little small cafe or something that sells the permits, but chances are they may well have pictures on the wall. Some places they even got all the stocking figures of what the fish are. Ask the people, you know, say big carp in there and things like that, and you'll get a good idea whether it's worth a try or not. And I think if you can be one of the first anglers on one of these big waters, that's the time to be on there. You can make some terrific catches.
Well, we both found that, haven't we? We both discovered the waters just by simply inquiring locally. The French people don't keep it secret what's in the lake. They're quite proud of it, aren't they?
That's right, yeah.
So there's literally thousands of waters in France that contain 30-pound carp.
Oh,
isn't
yeah,
there?
yeah.
Carp angler's paradise.
Yeah, it definitely is, yeah.
Part 3, permits to fish, the law and general behaviour. Perhaps you can tell us a thing or two about this.
Yeah, permits are a must in France for anywhere where you want to fish. You buy one permit the first time you go, it costs you 400 francs. That entitles you to fish in the area that you're actually in, and you buy a stamp that covers you for a year's fishing in France. So if you move on to another area or you revisit, all you do is you buy a stamp again for that area, or they may sell you another permit, but you only pay the 400 francs at once. The next time it's probably about 200 francs just for the area that you're going to.
And that can be done at any restaurant or fishing tackle shop near a lake, yeah?
Yeah, generally if you get to the area that you want to fish, find somebody who's fishing, asking them where you can get your permit. You'll find it's a small cafe on the banks of the lake. Might be a little fishing tackle shop in the nearest village or something like that. The only problem you will find is if you go to somewhere where they're not used to selling tickets to English anglers. I remember the first time we went in to buy one, we ended up for one for collecting frogs' legs, you know, instead of actually fishing.
Frogs' legs?
Yeah. You know, and of course a lot of the anglers in France buy them for fishing for pike and brochet. You must explain to the people as best you can that you want to fish from the bank for carp. They might sell you a ticket for boat fishing for pike and all of that, and you'll be in trouble if you've got the wrong ticket. So
yeah. So the French name for licence is what? Carte?
That's it.
Carte.
Carp.
And for carp it's carper?
Yep.
So if you said carte for carp, something like that, that you'd never get. Now it's a yearly licence, isn't it? It ends at the end of the year.
That's it,
So if you was to buy it in November, it only lasts for 2 months.
Yeah, a bit like our rod licences now.
In England, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the tickets, I don't know if I explained it very well, but the first stamp is like a rod licence type of thing. It entitles you to fish anywhere in France. And your next one covers you for the area that you're actually fishing. As you move areas, you buy another stamp. Right.
Now, I've got 2 licences here. When we fished the Seine recently, it was a different licence altogether.
Yeah.
It's got here Seine and Marne.
Yeah.
But that's not normal, no? You only get 1 or 2 specific areas
That's it. You still didn't have to pay for your stamp, did you? Because you'd already got it for another area. Sometimes they'll put it on the same card. If it's a different area, you'll end up with another card.
Right.
I did notice on one of the ones I went to, they actually wanted a photograph to put on the thing. So it's best just to carry a couple of your old fishing photographs, and then if you need them, just chop a little bit out of them. They're not fussy. It don't have to be a passport photograph, as long as it's got a picture of you or somebody who looks like you, that'll do.
But a licence is a must?
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about night fishing and things like that?
Well, strictly against the law in France, isn't it? I mean, we've heard of this lake that we're at, in the last month, over 80 people getting caught night fishing, so...
And what happens when you're caught night fishing?
Well, certainly a fine, which you may get on the spot, or it may be sent to your house, so when you get home, you've got a fine waiting for you. You hear of people have had tackle confiscated, even had their vehicles impounded. And it just depends where you are and how bad an offence they look upon it, you know. Yeah,
and what's the typical fine, 500 francs?
Yeah, 500 francs. Yeah.
But you hear of up to 1,500 francs, don't you?
That's right, yeah, I've heard, yeah. I'm not talking from experience, of course.
I've heard that some of the guards are carrying little mini computers now where they can look up your records. I assume that's to see if you've been caught before.
Yeah,
and one assumes that if you get caught several times, then it can become so serious an offence that your tackle could be confiscated and eventually you could be locked up, perhaps.
That's right. I think, again, if they come and they check your ticket and you haven't got a ticket, then you're in problems straight away. So, you know, it is important that you do buy a ticket for wherever you're fishing.
Right. And what about general behaviour of anglers when they're fishing in other countries?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the French anglers fish for pike and perch. It's sort of sport fishing for them. But a lot of them are ever so amiable sort of blokes. I mean, you have terrible problems with the language barrier, but you pick up a few little words here and there, and they want to know how you're getting on carp fishing, and if you ask them, show a bit of interest in how they're getting on with their fishing, you know, you can build up a bit of camaraderie like between them.
And they're generally very friendly, aren't they?
They are, yeah, ever so friendly.
And if you're there breaking the laws and leaving litter and things like that, you're soon going to annoy them, upset them,
right.
And then you're asking for trouble, aren't you?
Yeah.
I remember here a few days ago, we had an unhooking mat, a pump-up one. It blew away, didn't it?
Yeah.
And a couple of hours later, French angler came back with it. I mean, how about that for honesty?
Yeah, very nice.
And that's how we should behave when we're in their country, shouldn't we?
Yeah.
Anything else on behaviour? You know, obviously you mustn't get drunk on the bank and light fires and things like that and litter, but that's all fairly common sense.
Yeah. I mean, like you say, lighting fires and that, down south, where it is ever so dry, it's a big offence. Any sort of fire, you know, they'll look upon that. And it's the same, you've got to be careful where you go. A lot of places, they won't even let you put a bivvy up. That's counted as rough camping, and that's another offence. So you have got, whatever their laws are, you've got to try and stick within them as best you can. Obviously, if you do break them, then you've got to suffer the consequences. I mean, we always take a bed chair, but it don't hurt in the day to fold it up and just make it look like a chair, because these people, they're not used to a lot of places seeing bed chairs and sleeping bags and that sort of thing. They think you're up to no good to start with, you know, and you don't know, it may be them that will draw their attention to the local police or anything like that. So
it's just common sense, really.
It is really, yeah.
Yeah.
This is the rig we're using. Bolt rig. The lead's Leslie's tab-hold lead. You make it up like this. The little piece goes on first. Size 5 Berkeley swivel next, and then the other rubber piece push on top. The main line's tied to the eye and straight out the top. Hook lengths we're using is just nylon. This is 12-pound big game. The hooks are size 4 KM boilie hooks and double boilies, Maestro honey nectar. That's the rig.
Going well now. Definitely a linear. Yes, it's in the bag. Well done, mate. That was a result. Because you haven't had time to set your net up yet. Yeah? Beautiful. Oh, that is lovely. Quite rare, isn't it? So why do so many carp anglers come to France?
Got to be huge carp with no names, really, innit? I mean, fish of a lifetime in England, a £30 fish still for a lot of people. Come over here, you could catch 30 of them in a week if you're on the right water and you're lucky enough. Go to some places, just no telling how big they could be either, you know. We've talked about fish of £100, and it's not a dream, it's possible, isn't it, some of these waters out here. Catch a fish, probably never seen a hook before as well, you know, first time ever.
So it's right, heart-pounding action, is it?
It's great, isn't it?
Yeah. So, I mean, in England and other countries, a 15-kilo fish, as you say, is a fish of a lifetime. Yet you can come here, like we did this week, and we've caught more than 60 fish of a lifetime.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
that's what it's all about.
Yeah, come and have a go, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
We love it. All right, have a cup of tea and we'll go and catch a few more whackers, shall we?
Yeah.